Hello and welcome to the Canmaking News podcast. This is episode 2. Today's sponsors are the revolutionary safety resealable beverage can end and the open clean beverage can end. For more information, please contact Simon at nomis.im. And today I am talking to Simon Jennings, who is the chairman of Nomis Consultancy. He is an advisor to the metal packaging industry, and I'm Janice Osborne, the publisher of Canmaking News. Simon, how are you?
All well here, Janice. Good to speak to you again.
Nice to speak to you. How are you surviving?
Yeah, we're doing well. I spent most of my time over the last 2 years on the Isle of Man, where we've managed to avoid the worst ravages of COVID due to the closure of our border, which has stopped me travelling. But today I'm speaking to you from Portugal, where I've just arrived.
Fantastic. So do you have to quarantine when you go back?
It depends what the rules are when we go back in September. They've probably changed about 5 times by then.
Well, actually, yes, you're probably right, because I'm not sure what we're doing half the time. Anyway, it's great to talk to you, and it's lovely to see you, because we're on Zoom as well. So what I thought I'd ask you first is, tell me about you. We've seen you present at shows. Tell me a little bit about your background, please, and for our listeners, and how long have you been in the industry?
So, Janice, I've worked in the packaging industry virtually the whole of my career. I started off as an Illinois graduate trainee in the glass industry. I then moved to a company called Rockware, which was in glass, plastics and metals. Most of Rockware is now within Ardagh. And about 26 years ago, I joined Bowater, which then became Wrexham. And there I did a whole variety of strategy, merger and acquisitions, marketing and general management jobs. I ended up running their business in Asia. And really I became sort of involved with the can industry around mid-90s, and especially in 1998 when Wrexham bought PLM, the Swedish can packaging conglomerate.
Okay, so your experience in the canning industry spans over, how many years is that? About 20 years, 30 years?
Too many. I was referred to as a veteran of the industry, which made me feel a bit old. But I'd say that I've worked around the industry and the beverage industry for all the career. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in the beverage can industry because I wouldn't know how to set up a body maker if I've tried.
That's interesting. So you couldn't make a can?
No, I could go and find the right people to make cans.
That's the answer.
I think that's the important thing is having the right people around you.
Absolutely. So that brings me on to my next question, really. And, in the last 18 months, we've seen an enormous upheaval in the industry. And I wanted to know what your views were on this.
Well, my view is that some of these trends started a lot longer ago than 18 months ago. I mean, I can remember doing a project in 2015 and seeing that the trends, especially in the US, were that the cans were beginning to sort of move away from being in a stagnant market, which they'd been for many, many years. And some of the biggest change has happened in the US, where after, 10 or 15, 20 years of more or less stagnant demand, the reduction in the sales of soft drinks cans has sort of stopped. They're sort of slightly growing now. The growth of beer cans continued, and then you've had other products coming along and bringing growth. And, in an industry where you need to run virtually at full capacity to make any money, any change in direction causes some disruption. And in the US, that was particularly the case, where there'd been huge growth, overcapacity, especially in the 2000s. That was cut back drastically. And then, of course, any growth will create an issue. And that went all the way back through the chain to the rolling mills. And I think that was the issue that has created a lot of problems. I mean, obviously, you've had ongoing growth in the emerging markets, and that's been there all the time. That's especially in China. But you also have had growth in Europe, and the European markets have been growing steadily over the years anyway.
You say that the growth has caused a few problems. What are these problems? Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, I think the growth has caused problems because when you're not used to growing, you have a problem because you're set up for everything honed to the bone, and you suddenly find, well, I need more engineers, I need more capital, and businesses take a while to be able to react to that. And, that created, I think, the problem. I mean, many of the people who worked in the industry are retiring. So, naturally, there was a shortage of people. Manufacturing industry is not seen as the sexiest thing in the world. So, there was always going to be a shortage of engineers, and replacing all the good people who'd developed their careers in the 80s and 90s is an issue. And you're suddenly saying in America where one line might get put in occasionally, to suddenly everybody wanting a line and everybody needing the people, the equipment, and everything to do it. It's caused a huge problem. And the companies took a bit of time to adjust to that. I think they're beginning to adjust now to it, which is good.
Part of the reason for the growth, I would say, is because finally the world is recognising that the can is sustainable and it's 99% recyclable, because this has been a huge problem with packaging throughout, hasn't it?
I think people in the industry have understood that the can is fully recyclable, just as glass is, and many paper products. I think the thing that's changed is that there has been a sort of a backlash against putting anything and everything into a plastic bottle.
Yes.
And rather than suddenly people understanding that cans are recyclable, I think our customers have known that all the time. It was cheaper for them to put product in PET bottles. And that's been, their go-to product. When you launch a new product, what do you put it in first? Well, you put it into a PET bottle. I think what's happened is they're thinking, oh, actually, we could put this in a can instead. I think our customers haven't understood the sustainability argument. Maybe their customers are beginning to understand it.
Yes, that's what I was meaning. So, yes, you can virtually put anything in a can, really, can't you?
You can.
Yeah, absolutely. This brings me back to the article that we published in December last year. You very kindly wrote a piece for us, and you said in it, you believe that the beverage can is unlikely to replace the plastic bottle in its current state. Can you expand on this?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the plastic bottle has a closure on it, which means that you can open it and close it. Probably 99.9% of cans don't have closures on them, and there is the issue. The beverage can, as far as I'm concerned, is the best and has been the best single serve pack for decades. It's very competitive. It's very user friendly. It's easy to use. It's recyclable. Everything. It's got everything going for it. It keeps the product well. Yes. Doesn't matter what temperature it is. It cools down quickly. I mean, just the list goes on.
So it's educating the consumer really to understand this, isn't it? That's the problem that we have.
Well, there's that, but then there's also then for single-use product. Yeah, I think cans will keep growing. But then there's a large part of the market where you either sip from your container or you use it as a storage container, and for that you have to have a closure. And I think that's why, if you want the cans to become, I mean, they're doing pretty well. If you really want them to penetrate the larger part of the market, you're going to end up having a can with a closure on it. And there is, there are products around that do that. Yes. But, they're still trying to grow.
Do you think this will happen? Do you think eventually the can will have a closure that can be reused?
I believe that now it's more likely than ever.
Yeah.
I think because people will be prepared to pay for it. I still think getting an all aluminium closure for a can is possibly impossible. As I said, I'm not an engineer, but I can't even physically see a way of it working, because even aluminium screw thread closures have plastic liners in them.
This is the problem, yeah.
You will always have to have some element of a plasticized liner within it. It's then saying, how little plastic can you get away with?
So this is the problem. Can we do without plastic? And that brings me on to something I watched recently on Netflix. Have you seen the documentary called Seaspire?
No, I haven't. But Janice, we can't do without plastics. We wouldn't be able to talk to each other without plastics.
I agree with you.
Okay, so there's, and I work in the plastics industry. Plastics are recyclable. It just costs more to recycle them than to get virgin materials. So the issue will be...
So what you're saying is, even with programs like that, which was actually, it was very shocking, and if you have time to watch it, perhaps you should, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but what I saw, it was absolutely incredible, the amount of damage that plastics are doing to sea life.
And yeah, whether it's true or not, it's something that is a function of waste plastics. And, you can recycle plastic, so you have to collect it. And I think the issue is that people will just have to get to the stage where you have to pay for it. Somebody has to pay for it, just as, you have to pay for when your car's scrapped. It is something that will come, because removing plastics from humankind will basically send us back 100 years. And, I've seen little stories on the internet going through, well, what would you do without plastics and petroleum products? Yeah. Well, we'd be pretty much in the dark ages.
No, I agree with you there, and I think most people would too. It's all very, very interesting, though, and very debatable, this, isn't it? Aluminium versus plastics. It's very, very, it's controversial as well.
No, I think what needs to happen, and, from the packaging or the aluminium side and the steel as well, is, you need to keep pushing the recycling. You need to keep pushing the fact that recycling these materials is economic, and that when you are going to use plastic, it has to be with the recycling cost built into it, and the waste collection and everything else, which may change the economics of plastics to a certain extent for certain things, and you'll end up using plastics for what you really need to use them for, rather than the single-use plastics that have no real benefits. Yes. In Brazil, 98% of cans that are made go back to be made into cans again. So cans are 100% recyclable. As long as the material goes back, it can be made back into cans. And that's called sort of more or less a closed-loop recycling system. Virtually no new metal in a can. With cans, you can make them virtually 99.9%. Same with glass, by the way. And plastics, you can recycle plastic. And I mean, again, I know this is a can industry publication, but plastics can be recycled, and all plastics can be recycled, and they can be recycled back into their original material. It just costs money, and they require investment to do it. So it's just that with glass and cans, in fact, it's cheaper to use recycled material than new material. With plastics, it's cheaper to use new material rather than recycled material. But there are many plastic containers that you couldn't put in a can, you couldn't put in a container. They're just, physically impossible to do it. So could we have had all the vaccinations that we've had without plastic syringes? Well, you could have glass syringes, but they're pretty unuser-friendly. So I still believe it's using the right material for the right use and at the right price.
And just a reminder, today's podcast is sponsored by the Safety Resealable Beverage Can End and the Open Clean Beverage Can End. For more information, please contact Simon at nomis.im. Yes, I mean, I personally feel that I don't think the consumer would object to paying more if they knew they were helping to create a sustainable future with packaging.
Yeah. I mean, again, Janice, I'm old enough to have seen the introduction of PET bottles, replacing glass bottles for 1 litre carbonated soft drinks. And I worked in the glass industry, and I happened to be doing the forecasts, and I told my boss, your business is going to fall over because this is going to happen. They didn't believe me. And I said, it's going to fall over because the product is better and safer. So would you want a 2 litre glass carbonated soft drinks bottle? And the answer is no. Would you want a 2 litre can it'd be very difficult to make.
Yes.
1 litre cans are there,
Yes.
but they'd be difficult to make. It'd be very expensive. And I think, the 2 litre PET bottle, even with all the recycling cost fully integrated into it, would be the right pack. So it's finding the right package. And I think where cans can grow is on the smaller to medium-sized packs with a resealable end on it that works, one that's easy to use, one that seals properly.
Yes. Well, let's hope we can get to that eventually.
Well, I hope so with my products that I'm involved with.
Yes. So. I was going to say, is there anything new on the horizon you'd like to share with us?
Well, on the safety resealable can end, we're working on that. It's already, in terms of a pressure retention basis, the lightest version around. We are now looking at a version that's 60% lighter, or lighter, 60% less plastic in it. And, we're talking to various people about that. Hopefully we'll get traction with it and move forward and give an opportunity for something that is easy to use, fully carbonation retention at 90 psi. We hope that will come along soon.
When you say soon, that brings me on to my next thought, exhibitions and conferences. So would that be ready for Metpac, for instance, in 2023?
Well, we already have prototypes, so when we are showing them to people, I think you're
to launch, yes.
To launch. At one level, we've already launched it. We have, we decided that we had to talk to some of our major potential customers about this product now as a prototype and a concept. Will it be ready to launch? Well, when we have a key customer willing to work with it, we'll launch it. So hopefully before 2023.
Yeah, hopefully. Are you missing going to the shows and the exhibitions, Simon? How are you finding it?
I always like meeting people, and I think it's one of the key things that helped me going along is meeting people, meeting lots of different people. And I think, the lack of being able to go and see people is an issue, especially with new people and in different cultures. So, yes, I am missing them. But, aren't we all missing meeting other people?
Yes, we are.
It's a fundamental human requirement is to meet other people.
Yes, Zoom has become so commonplace now, hasn't it, within all industries. I wonder if conferences are going to continue in the same format now because of this.
Well, Zoom is great for people that you know. Starting off on not that I do it very often, a cold call on Zoom is very difficult. It's it was always difficult to do cold calling on a phone.
Yeah.
On Zoom, it's probably even more difficult because the person can say, I don't like the look of you, and switch you off. So I think it is difficult. With Zoom, you can't really speak to large groups of people. You can do podcast type thing, but you can't get the interaction of it. And I maybe I'm old fashioned, but I still think that meeting in groups is one way of learning what's going on. Talking to people individually, you don't get people bouncing off each other.
No, I agree with you. And the metal packaging industry is very sociable. We go to some fantastic shows and exhibitions, don't we? And a lot of the chats take place later on in the bar, after the presentations, and we just haven't got that anymore, have we?
No, I belong to one of the city livery clubs, and we have managed to continue with our meetings and everything online, so it can be done. Again, it's much easier with people that you know.
Canmaking News is a major partner of Latin Can, which takes place this year in Mexico on the 22nd to the 24th of September. Will we be seeing you there, Simon?
I'm here in Portugal till then. I think the travel is still not easy, but things change all the time. Coming to Portugal, I'd arrived on the ferry in Spain one day later, I'd have had to do a whole lot of tests. But if we'd arrived in Portugal not having our second vaccine, that would have been a problem. So, and the rules change so frequently. So that is an issue.
Yeah. So this has been really interesting, and I'm sure our listeners would like to know a little bit more about you. Tell me, who are the top 3 people who have been the most influential to you in your life?
I think, the most influential person is my wife, Caroline.
Aww.
She's put up with me and put up with me traveling the world and uprooting myself time and time again during my career. And she's kept me, quite grounded. Sort of when you start getting sort of all fancy about things, she said, "Well, does that really matter?" So I think, that's all. I think then one of my bosses, a chap called Sir Frank Davis, who's now well into his 80s, when I worked at Rockware, who trusted me, who let me make mistakes and point me in the right direction, and taught me basically that, the most important group of people you need to listen to are the experts. And so my third choice is the multitude of experts on whom we all depend. And, they don't have to be the senior people. It's the junior people. It's the people who make our industry work. And I think learning that those are the important people has probably been the most important lesson I've learned in my career as well.
That's interesting. And just what I wanted to hear. So what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to pursue a career similar to yours?
I think obviously listening and learning. You'll always be learning. I learn now. In my mid-60s, I'm still learning. I think get around the world, go to places that you might feel uncomfortable because actually they're great places to go and offer huge opportunities. And I think to remember that everybody you meet, every customer that you meet, they may be small, they may be unimportant, but one day they may well be important. And again, I learned that early in my career. And, you suddenly find that somebody you thought, wow, no, they don't matter. And you move jobs and they're your biggest customer. So, I think those are the things.
And don't take anything for granted. That's what you're saying, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And, with the pandemic, I think we've all learnt that we can't take anything for granted.
No.
We're all sailing along very nicely and suddenly, oops, something happens and all the plans go out the window. So,
where can our listeners get in contact with you if they'd like to speak to you or email you or telephone you?
So my email address is simon@nomis.im for Isle of Man, and Nomis is Simon spelt backwards. If you don't know it, and you can.
I did not realise that. Now I know.
And also on LinkedIn. I'm a bit careful on LinkedIn with picking up on people, but that's probably the best ways of getting hold of me.
Okay, that's marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. And I've just one personal question for me, actually. I had a friend who was crazy about the Portuguese, are they cakes like a vanilla slice?
Pastéis de nata.
What's they called?
Pastéis de nata. They're little round cakes. Yes.
So, and they're made with vanilla. Are they like sort of a custard tart?
They're custard tart. They're called pastéis de nata, and it's one of the most famous products of Portugal, along with port wine and sardines. Yeah. And a good football team, unfortunately, got beaten.
Yes.
But they're called pastéis de nata.
Okay, well, listen, enjoy them because I'm very jealous.
I will do.
And enjoy the sun. And Simon, thank you so much for spending time talking to us, and I hope to see you soon at one of the shows.
Okay, well, hope to meet up soon, Jen.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Canmaking News podcast, and a special thank you to our very special guest, Simon Jennings, and also to my team, Adrian Townsend, who is the producer, and thank you from myself, Janice Osborne, and see you soon for episode 3.
My wife told me, try not to say because you always say
Yeah, my problem is that when I said yup a few times, didn't I? I mean, why I say that, goodness knows. And also my chair squeaks.